Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Rozzo. I'm a contributor and editor-at-large at AIR MAIL. And this is Jamie Oliver, who I think you probably know. I mean, he is a guy who has been, let's say, omnipresent in the food culture for more than 25 years, since episode 1 of The Naked Chef in 1999. Going further back, Jamie learned to cook when he was growing up at his parents' pub in a small town in Essex. And from there, he went on to apprentice at a couple of hugely influential London restaurants. The Neal Street restaurant was started by Sir Terence Conrad. And then the famous River Cafe. There are a couple things you may not know about Jamie. He's a very good drummer. He appeared as a stormtrooper in Star Wars. Which one was it? Do you remember?
I think it's Rogue One.
Okay, there you go.
I was a colour sergeant, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I stand corrected. And also he provided the voice of a French health inspector in Ratatouille, which is everyone's favorite food movie. And also, get this, I mean, thanks to dozens of cookbooks, which I tried to count how many and I failed, Jamie is the, how to put it, the all-time best-selling nonfiction author in British history. So, you know, take that, dyslexia. You know, perhaps even more importantly, he is maybe the number one, you know, visible proponent of, you know, social issues around food, thanks to many initiatives such as Ministry of Food, Bite Back 30, et cetera, you know, focusing on childhood nutrition and food education. Also the guy, I want to say, who probably did a lot to bring the phrase pink slime into the popular lexicon.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I haven't. But and now he's the subject of the first episode of this new series on Netflix called Chef's Table Legends. All of this and so much more before the age of 50. And, you know, his fans are legion, all of us here tonight among them. So anyway, Jamie Oliver, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Here
what a great intro.
Newsstand. Anyway, you know, why not go back to beginnings? I'm always fascinated about the fact that you grew up in a family pub, meaning you were just immersed in food and hospitality virtually from day one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I thought it was normal growing up as a kid, but we lived in a little chocolate box village, which is, I don't know if you've heard that saying before, but if you had a chocolate box in the 50s, 60s and 70s, it would be a very pretty village. So that's what it means. It's a very pretty village, very old. The house I grew up in was like 14th century and is old, you know.
Yeah.
But
was it drafty?
Not really, no, because they made them properly in those days. Yeah. You know, it's like, and they moved, and it, you know. Yeah. But no, it's my dad was one of the early pioneers of what you would call gastropubs now. So pubs historically weren't famous for having great food, but when I grew up as a child, you know, special sports were being written, whole animals were being brought in and butchered on site. We'd have like fish day on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and we'd have like live lobsters, crabs, and like amazing whole flat fish, and yeah, we had the traditional like pies that were handmade and fish and chips that you would expect, but it was really sort of more Anglo, French, Germanic, sort of pretty upscale cooking happening, and I thought that was normal. That was my normal, but it was very and I thought it was normal all the way until I was 17 and a half when I moved to London. And I realized when I got to London, actually, because I went to find the real food heroes. Yeah. Like, and then after I'd been in London for 6 months, I'm like, shit, mum and dad were really good. Like, it wasn't normal. It was exceptional. Yeah. So I had a very lucky childhood. That was my true apprenticeship, really.
Yeah, and your dad had trained as a chef as well.
Yeah,
so.
He'd worked in France and sort of trained, and then but done it all very young. I think at one stage he was the youngest licensed publican in the whole of Britain. Wow. And actually I was born in a very, very rough part of the country, very rough council estate, very violent. And when my sister was born, then we moved to the pub in this beautiful part of Essex.
Oh wow! Where was the violent council estate?
Grays in Essex, which is basically the mouth of the River Thames. And as most of us know, normally where there's a port or boats come in, there's quite a lot of trouble, and it's sort of like the first stop, and they're normally quite lively places.
Yeah. What kind of stuff were you put on in the kitchen when you were a kid?
Didn't really work like that.
Oh yeah.
It's but mainly because it was child labour.
Yeah.
Because basically everything that I'm going to tell you was not legal. I started working about 9, and it started off very simple. My dad was always very fulfilled when I was working. If I was ever sitting down doing nothing, he'd look nervous about life in general. If he'd be really nervous right now seeing all of you doing nothing right now. It's like, you've got to get a job, like you've got to polish something or fix something. But no, I started off bottling up, so replacing the bottles behind the bar. I would then do the recycling of the bottles, which they did in the old days. I used to clean the toilets, and he'd like teach me how to make the brass shine in the toilets, and you could tell a lot by a toilet in a restaurant. And then I went to the wash up, and in the wash up where you wash everything up, you prep the veg, so just peeling stuff, relentless peeling. But I always wanted to be in the chef where all the dudes were, and it was like a proper regimental French style kitchen, sections, minimum 5 chefs on a shift, like a real pastry in a pub. I mean, it was like, I thought it was normal, but it's bunkers. So we didn't buy anything in. So by the time I was sort of like 16, like I'd already kind of been through the cycle 3 times, and been very young running shifts, and when I say like 14 on a Saturday lunch, is busy, so, but it was just normal really. And I always explain to people, it's like, if you've ever played Tetris, that's what it's like running the pass. Like, you just get orders coming in and different things, and you've got to put things in the right place at the right time, and everyone's got to work together, and the satisfaction of kind of getting an order away or a big table or keeping on top of it. And obviously, as we say as shifts, when you get in the shit, when you're going down, like when you can't keep up and people are starting to complain, that's like the worst feeling in the world. So you don't want to go there. So you spend the whole morning prepping to not get there. So you're always plan A, plan B, like you've got ways of cutting corners without compromise. And so that was all before 16.
Yeah, wow.
It's but what was really nice is I always had money in my pocket. My father was generous. He paid me £1.20 an hour. So I always had good trainers, and I always had 20 quid in my pocket. And in those days we had penny sweets. So for £1, you could get 100 sweets. That's a lot of sugar. It's like so you can't do it. Now they sell it to you by weight, and it's really expensive. Yeah.
And in Chef's Table, you talk, quite eloquently about your school days and how they weren't really so rosy for various reasons. Maybe you could explain, and then how you really found something in this sort of what do you call this sort of visceral experience of craft, of working with food.
Well, so at school, I had dyslexia basically, but we didn't really know, anything about it in those days, and there was no screening for it, and so basically I was just one of the thick kids. So I didn't have a chip on my shoulder about it, but you do start when you can't do everything everyone else can do, and you do notice as a kid, and some of the kids that were like me didn't. Like I was quite resilient, so I wasn't a victim in any way, shape or form, but like many kids around me were, and they kind of got, I'm actually doing a documentary on dyslexia now, which is fascinating. Sort of like on average, 15% of every class is dyslexic, and on average, 55% of every prison is dyslexic. And then when you spend time with brain scientists and they say there's nothing wrong with the brain, it's not disabled, it's different. And it's always been like that, and nature intended that. You think differently, but what is unusual is the education system that's very specific and really only fit for about 75% of the kids to be taught. So I struggled through that. So like Monday to Friday, I had a pretty bad time at school. In secondary school, they would pull you out and put you into a group called special needs. So that was good for your self-esteem. It's like, whoa. when I got, and they wouldn't just send you to special needs, they pull you out of English to go to special needs just because it was like more fun, I guess. It's like, so my class used to sing special needs to Let It Be. And like again, I'm not a victim, like, because it was roughly in tune, and actually I love music, so they were the little shits were even harmonizing. All the words of wisdom, special needs, woo, yeah, it's like fucking all right. But it fueled a lot of banter. But no, I think but like school wasn't great. So at the weekends, the kitchen was great. And I think where most kids, and I say most, I think that's fair, get defined by always being last or shit or thick or stupid, or that's not true, but that's what they feel. I was fine because I was in the kitchen kind of earning £1.20 an hour with nice trainers, learning how to fillet fish and butcher a lamb and marinate and grill and like run a veg section and a sauce section and a pastry section, starter section. You know what I mean? So like, and so it did define me, but I mean, I always say the kitchen did save me for sure.
Yeah. And, was there a certain point where you were trying to decide between pursuing food for a living or pursuing music? Because you were probably drumming.
I wanted to drum professionally for sure. Yeah, I was that was my whole, when I wasn't working the weekends, like in the summer holidays, I was just in a shed down the bottom of the garden, which I had, because I worked in the kitchen, I had access to commercial size egg boxes. So the whole shed was like stuck with egg boxes, beautifully soundproofed, to protect the whole village from my drumming.
It's like Shedley Grange. Is it still there?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
It is.
Is your drum kit there or somewhere else?
No, I have the drum kit in my house now, but no, I think the music was good. It kept me out of trouble, and the cooking kind of kept me focused. And but I've always loved music. I think it's a really beautiful way to express yourself, and certainly if you look at the use of music in Chef's Table, it's very like emotive. And I'm doing a documentary on dyslexia at the moment, and I've done, well, I was telling you earlier, I've done the score and got an orchestra to play on that, and it's amazing. It make you sort of really amplify feelings. And I tried to write what dyslexia felt like, which is a lot of things, but certainly when you're using strings and cellos and double basses and violas, you can really get into that, and it's quite cool. But far away from the kitchen, obviously. But I think like part of what I've done in 25 years is like the cooking is my pillar, but I try and use other skills to tell that story, and be a bit of a jack of all trades, really.
Right. And then how was it that you found yourself at the River Cafe, which must have been such a sort of cauldron for culinary experience for you? You were pretty young at that time too, right?
I think it's like Rose Gray and Ruth Rogers who started the River Cafe. Just like extraordinary women, really. And like, as we all know, the best cooks on the planet are always women, but which I believe is true. Instinctively and naturally, but men, if good male cooks are in contact with their feminine side, in my opinion, right, and they're very open to it, but like chefing as an industry is quite alpha male, and it's more about control and craft, and the feminine, in my opinion, is, and what I learned through Rose and Ruthie, is more about like feelings and nurture and impulse and reacting. And we wrote a menu every day, twice a day. Like most chefs don't do that. They're into like monthly menus, quarterly menus, like weekly menus if they're quick. But like Rose and Ruthie were like every day, lunch menu, prep, service, dinner, the same again. And like literally we'd finish a menu and be late, and someone would walk in with a box of immaculate sardines. And they're like, no, that can't wait. Get that on now. And it's like, okay. So something that could wait would be put in the fridge, and then the sardines would be like, you got to fill it like 10 kilos of sardines, and it's 5:45, and the customers come in at 6. So it was kind of beautifully, it was amazing. And but like the food, I mean, like Alice Waters, it's that kind of, that lightness of touch, that simplicity, that bravery, that honesty, and that like snapshot of the day. Right. And the River Cafe was very good at teaching chefs to think and react. So you can have like, this is my opinion, which is like you can have really good technical chefs that work in Michelin star restaurants. And often when they're headhunted, and they often do get headhunted to open their own restaurant, they express lots of versions of what their boss did. Whereas Rose and Ruthie sort of, through the choreography of River Cafe, they just treat people to think. So whatever they do, whether it's a deli or a pizzeria or a sandwich bar or a Spanish restaurant or a Moroccan, like it's just got this agility. You can't, do you know what I mean? It's like you can have a great room and you can have like a DJ, like great records, but it's the DJ that has to read the room and feel the energy and like react. That's how you get a good night. It's not just because you're in a nice room, right? And it's really hard to teach that. And I remember, and I was pretty well versed by then. I remember the first 3 weeks at the River Cafe, like my instinct was to want to cry because the chaos by the change was not what we were trained at college. It's not what we were trained in a traditional French kitchen. Yeah. No one changes the menu every day.
Right. And they still change it every day, even now.
Yeah. And I was there for 3.5 years, and like we got a Michelin star sort of like year 2. And it's like, wow, like Michelin's really changing because this is a different type of cooking. Right. But yeah, I mean, they're excellent.
Yeah. And Jamie, did you seek them out? Did you seek Rose and Ruthie out?
Yeah.
You
totally.
were like, this is a place I need to work?
Yeah, I like because they wrote that River Cafe Blue, which is like a classic book, there was nothing that looked like that in the world. And like Rose was cool, Ruthie was cool, but Ruthie was also married to Richard Rogers, the architect who designed the Pompidou Centre and like, you know, many landmark buildings around the world, train stations and civic buildings. He was a genius, beautiful man. And the River Cafe actually was originally designed to serve the architect's wharf. So it was a cafe and it was 1/10 of the size. And the architects would come in and draw their drawings that became civic buildings on the tablecloth, which is paper with little cubes on it. And it was obviously graphic design structure. So you'd literally, and I saw it, you'd see buildings that we walk through now, and I've seen it on paper, and I've seen it in the model shop that was next to the pastry, and they'd make it out of models. And then like you blink 5 years and you're walking through it going, yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, it was River Cafe Blue book, like blew my mind, and immediately I applied for a job. Yeah. No regrets.
Yeah, and they scooped you up right away. The interview apparently went well.
Yeah, I mean, I nearly blew it because my dad always taught me to wear a smart suit and a tie. You don't do that at the River Cafe. You know, it's more linen and kind of like, you know, primary colours. And it's like you'd never wear a suit to the River Cafe. Not a cheap suit like I had. If you'd have put a candle near me, I'd have been up in flames. It's like, and I remember Rose interviewing me, and I could see the chefs just going, look at that wanker over there. Look, what is he wearing? It's like, no, it's so tight. But we talked about food, and then it got serious, and then she gave me a chance. So it's the best opportunity of my life, really.
Yeah. And
well, it's the only reason I'm sitting here.
Yeah,
so,
you got the job. And from that led to the Naked Chef.
Yeah, well, I basically got called in on a night I wasn't supposed to work. So I covered someone that was sick, and there was a crew there, and then I ended up on the background of the documentary, and they just kept asking me very annoying questions. So I kept asking them, but I was very busy. It was a Saturday night, so it was busy, and so I ended up on this documentary, and then the phone calls started, and then I'd written I didn't really know what I was doing, but I said, I don't really want to do TV because it's like getting in the way. And also that like we chefs sort of look down on TV chefs a little bit. And we sort of like, if I'm going to do it, it's going to be like me with my friends and my family, not in a studio, in my home, you know, and it's all about stripping restaurant food down to its bare essentials. And like the developers are like, stripping, bare, naked. So it's that's how the Naked Chef was born.
And it was so impactful, wasn't it? I mean, this is 99, it comes out, and it's kind of like the thing. This is, you know, the era of Cool Britannia. Naked Chef makes cooking cool, makes cooking acceptable for guys.
It was good timing. It was lucky timing.
Yeah.
But it was more than that as well. I think it was sort of like, it was intertwined subliminally and deeply with versions of women's empowerment and like, what does that mean? So we'd kind of done a few decades of women driving into the workplace and kind of, you know, getting to where they got to, but yeah, at 7 o'clock every night, they would get home and the men would say, "What's for dinner, love?" So the world had changed, but men hadn't. Yeah. So there was and even in like schools, if it was a boys' school, they wouldn't be taught cooking, but if it was a girls' school, they would. So we were still in that place. So the Naked Chef, if you really analyze why I became so famous so quick, it was driven by female journalists across all types, saying about time, and my vision, even at that age, was that anyone can cook, and so it was really turning like women was for girls to women would get you girls, and it was interesting because like obviously it was the Naked Chef was embraced, but men at large hated me for about a year because men are so slow to learn. Like, so it literally, the minute that men realized they could get more lucky with women if they could just cook, then I went from like enemy to ally. So then it was, yeah, but the first year was quite rough. I got chased and roughed up on a number of occasions by men saying, "I have to cook 3 times a week because of you, you arsehole." And and many times running. But then it changed to, oh, you never guess what, you know. And it was nice. It's like, and it was time. And I think it was, and actually, like, I'd do demonstrations in front of like 2,000 people, that sort of, you know, early days, and it would be all women. And then within a year and a half, it was 50-50. And that actually has stayed. And then even if I look at sort of my YouTube demographics, it actually skews men. But men consume the content differently because we're different girls. You know, the girls will take a recipe and go, "Oh, I've done a Jamie Oliver recipe," whereas the men will take a Jamie Oliver recipe and go, "This is my recipe." And so, but they won't even watch the content. So if I make normal content, it will start, middle, and end. But the men won't consume that because they'll only learn 3/4 of it and they know better, right? So they never do the proper ending. So then I have to re-challenge the way I edit, and I put the ending at the front, just so they know where they got to bloody get to, you know. So it's interesting, sort of the dynamic changes, but, and the kind of transaction of information is. I don't care. I'm here to be used and abused. So like take me as you will, but it is pretty consistent.
Yeah.
But
that's so crafty. In the show, you talk about being somewhat taken aback by the sudden sort of wave of fame that kind of seemed to crash over you at that time. It was huge.
More like being in a boy band, really.
Yeah. And you describe it as being like a stomach ache.
Yeah, it was very exciting and very strange, and then very just invasive of everything. So sort of normal didn't really exist after that. So I had to make some decisions, but it was, I think, through the relationship of being an author, and because we were selling so many books, it was sort of like, it was like a true vote. Do you know what I mean? Like, buying a book is more than a like or a comment because they're free. They don't count at all. They're actually meaningless. But spending, 20 quid or whatever it is in dollars on a book is real. And so as I started, in those days we didn't have social media, but like we'd do book signings of like 300-400 people, and you talk to them and they tell you what they're happy about, what they're scared of, what they're upset about. So you just listen. And then I'd integrate like thousands of that into the next book. And you get, in the old days, you'd get like sacks of, like when I was in the Naked Chef, all the mail would go to Ireland and then come back to my house. And like, you'd get like huge sacks of thousands of letters. It's like, fucking hell. It's like, and I'm dyslexic, so like, good luck with that one. But you'd sort of start just listening to how the tone of the public. Yeah. So then it starts to feel like a responsibility, because the vote is a cash vote. It's not even a vote for government's free, right? Yeah. But like, so it's a vote, and then they tell you what they're pissed off about or happy about or worried about. And then I tried to work out how would I express that, because I was still a young boy and I wasn't political and I wasn't a campaigner, honestly. Yeah. So that really was only created that monster was only created out of my relationship with the public, which, you know, I felt that my success with the public was really listening hard, really listening. Like, don't just listen, but listen, and then express. And I think, like, in a way, my dyslexia allowed me to sort of think in 3D about, well, how could I express that? And like, what would that look like? And so, and that created 15, my first restaurant, which was very unusual.
Yeah, which is an incredible project. And it's almost like, I mean, did you feel like the way that you were coping with fame was trying to find a way to ultimately to use the fame for some bigger
I think so. Purpose.
Yeah,
I think so. Purpose. And I felt that I was sort of young and naive and excited, and that had, like, it had power. And it's interesting, as you get older, you become more measured and more conservative and more strategic, but that also makes you more boring and more predictable. So, like, you know, like, I was like 24 and I'd gone from being skint to a millionaire, and it's like, that's really fucking dangerous, like, in a good way. Like, that, I was really good fun. Can you imagine hanging out with me then? It was brilliant. So it's like, wow. So you just, and it, not in a rude way, but like, I had an idea, I wanted to do it, I could do it, and kids my age never could do it, but I could. Yeah. So we set up this restaurant, which was essentially training kids from prison and homeless kids and kids that were lost. And in my head, I think I was trying to find kids like me that struggled at school. So that's the one thing I had in common with all of them. What I didn't have in common with all of them was gangs and drugs and crime and single parent families and, like, really troubled parts of the city, which every city has. And then, of course, that was really my beautiful baptism of fire to sort of, I guess, social good. Is that the right, you know, like having a social conscience? Because I was learning it through them. And like, when you're working in the kitchen so many hours a day, like, you're hearing all their stories, and like, you think, well, I'm not surprised that happened to you. The law of averages were against you, right? So so that really shaped my belief that in rehabilitation and mentoring and apprenticeships and the power of second and third chances in a safe place. And I literally, I could make you cry in seconds just quoting kids and stories and their background, and then watching their excellence become, you know, in some respect, like Michelin. I've got students that have got Michelin stars. I haven't got one. It's like, you know, so it's so real, like, true rags to riches story. And so, yeah, through the kids, like, we've, I think over the 17 years, because we take 15 kids every year, I think we graduated like 480 something students, and most of them are still in the industry. So yeah, it's the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah,
super grounding.
And it seems like the beginning of a new chapter for you in your career that's still ongoing. You know, with all these campaigns, all these initiatives, including Ministry of Food, which you started in 2000.
Yeah, we, like, you know, you go to the most unhealthy part of the country, or country, you know, multiple parts, and then you open up a kitchen that does free cooking lessons to people that are poor and ill, and you take them shopping and you teach them the basics of nutrition and how to shop and about relationships of the people that sell stuff, and you teach them 10 recipes to save their life, and guess what, it works. And then you're like, okay, that works, so can we do it in schools? I mean, my dream would be that every American kid and every British kid would leave school knowing exactly that. And when I work with Mark Carney, who's the Prime Minister of Canada now, who used to be in charge of the Bank of England, like, he used to put economists with us because he was very supportive, bless him. Like, I like him, he's a good lad, he's like super bright, but he's like, this isn't just ethically and morally correct, and it's not just appropriate because we both celebrate the most unhealthy kids in the world. Like, it's actually, if you were to do this, it makes the country more productive. It doesn't just pay for itself, it makes money. So it baffles me that in schools around the country, like, the idea of do you know what I mean? What's the point of school? And as a dyslexic, that's what I'd say. Like, what is the point of school actually? And it's to make kids, like, see their inner strengths and genius and give them self-confidence, to build them up, not knock them down, and to make them able to go into adulthood, which is tricky, being able to have the tools to teach themselves and be curious, but also to take care of themselves. And if you look at what's really screwing up America and the UK at the moment, it's diet-related disease and obesity and and debt. So we don't teach financial literacy at school, and we don't teach nutritional literacy at school. And it would be the most incredible class. So, you know, kids like to be streetwise, you know, and with my traveling hat on and journalistic hat on, like, you know, the best food in the world is always in the poorest communities. But the luxury is knowledge. The currency is knowledge. It's not Nikes and, you know, specific phones or, do you know what I mean? Like, the luxury is knowledge. And I that's why I'm passionate about it, because I think it truly gives people freedom when they have the ability. I've sat in many rooms with poor families eating delicious food with pure laughter and joy. And it sounds romantic, but it's true. Yeah. And in my country, we don't believe that's true. We believe that good food is for posh people, middle class, rich people. And it's just like, oh my God, it was never designed for that. It's like, good food is designed for everyone. And good food is not about fillet steaks and foie gras and truffles. You know, it's great, but that can fuck right off. Like, good food is about like a tenacious obsession about reacting to what the weather gives you. Yeah. And knowing how to turn cheap cuts into something delicious and, you know, harness the nutrition, you know, you know, all that good stuff into something that looks like a bolognese or a lasagna. You know, it's like, you can do it.
You know, and let's say 20 years of this kind of work, this kind of advocacy that you've done with the various campaigns, the various initiatives. I mean, how are we doing right now? Are we going in the right direction with this in terms of awareness of where food comes from, childhood nutrition, you know, the so-called politics of the plate, etc.? What's your outlook right now?
I mean, it's bad, isn't it? It's bad. It's really bad. We've never known more. Science is like very clear, and we're learning fast. You know, what we're learning about, you know, the gut biome, and what we're learning about the way the body processes pesticides and other poisons we put on our food, and like, you know, we know a lot, and we react very little. And you know, probably in a respectful way, like, there's not a country in the world that's not breaking all the rules more than America, right? So like, every day in America, there's hundreds of things in the food chain that's completely illegal in Europe and the UK, like loads of stuff, like basic stuff. So there hasn't been a government that's really had any respect for truth or science. And when science doesn't go in their favor, they change, and I'll try and say this correctly, they will change the rules of science. So in America, in Europe, which is a fairly robust selection of countries, right? And they've got good universities, they know what they're doing, and they've got good food culture. If we notice that there's an unusual amount of children getting respiratory disease, and we don't know why, and then we realize that there's pesticides being sprayed on the field next door to the school, and the wind was going that way, and it's like, cool. So we have, our science is based on stopping that, researching that, and then reintroducing that when we know it doesn't hurt people. In America, you have to prove that it's hurting people first, but proof is based upon studies of different universities. And if you've got 3 studies against, then you can make another 3 go for. So you basically end up in this weird stalemate where things that are really dangerous end up staying in the system. So it's tricky. Yeah. But I mean, in a kind of positive way, though there's not really a good way to look at it. From my point of view, because I probably, without sounding sort of audacious, I'm not trying to sound rude or arrogant, probably pound for pound, like my team, which is like 4 people, probably we've made more legal change than anyone else I can think of on the planet, right? We're a little foursome, but they're good. You know, we're good. And we do documentaries, we tell stories, and then we build a campaign. And that sounds cute, but the campaign can last for years. And certainly when you've got a campaign and you've made change, then you have to also, it's a very long tail to make sure that they don't revert it in the next government, right? So it's fucking really painful when it's like,
because we're on a 4-year
work, and
cycle.
I've got to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think the potential for change is really good, but I don't think things are really going to change until we get a lot iller. But we're getting really close, so we should be really proud that it's got really bad, because maybe change will be close. But we humans just don't learn quick enough, and so basically, until it's cheaper to make people healthier, you know, it won't change. Right. So when there's commerce in health, and that's for big, you know, and it's not conspiracy. It's nothing to do with conspiracy. I mean, the food chain, pharmaceuticals, and agricultural pesticides are all quite closely linked. It's not rocket science. So, but again, what I've been about is like, if the currency is knowledge, then the ability to have $10 and go, right, I absolutely can create a beautiful meal. We're like, I'm down, like we can do that. So like, so I think knowledge is definitely freedom. So trying to make that cool again. Yeah. But we'll get there. I mean, like, we just, the 10 recipes to save your life, like the 10 lessons, the 10 skills, sorry. We were in 500 schools in the UK and growing fast. And today we launched in America, and it's completely free. So if you're a parent or a teacher, you can just download it, and we've done all the hard work for you, and like videos, pictures, like recipes, like, you know, we'll be doing competitions and all sorts. And it's, you know, we've done a test last year in LA. So we're trying our best. I'm trying my best. And
can I ask you about a particular recipe that I've been obsessed with for, I don't know, decades?
Okay.
That I associate with you, and I associate with the River Cafe, which is pork and milk.
Okay.
And I don't know, can you walk us through what that recipe is, and maybe what that recipe means for you? Because it seems like it has a certain kind of meaning for you, or was maybe...
Well, I mean, God, I could bore you with so many conversations about food. But I did so pork and milk, we did a big pork shoulder, cooked in milk. Probably sounds revolting, actually. But then when I started, my job's always been about translating or compromising the chef world into the real home. Yeah. So I did chicken and milk, which works really well. You can do it with a regular chicken. So in the old world, but let's take Europe, let's take Italy. Like, Italy's all about tomatoes, right? So, well, that's from South America. So like, the food in Italy was pretty brown, like a few hundred years ago. Like tomatoes are quite a new addition, along with onions and chilies and various other things. So milk was actually used to cook meat very commonly. You know, the milk actually tenderizes meat in a really fantastic way. And obviously when you're cooking in milk, it can split off, and you kind of almost have this ability to make kind of ricotta, homemade ricotta. So we basically take butter, we brown off the pork or the chicken, salt and pepper and nutmeg, which is a really great spice. And then as the butter starts to burn, you take the chicken out, pour away the butter, go back in with a fresh knob of butter, and you put the chicken back again. So you repeat that like 3-4 times until you got this like gnarly, brown, beautiful, caramelized, almost kind of like sort of that kind of toffee like vibes going on with rendered chicken skin or pork skin, obviously. And then the last time you put fresh butter in, then you go in with lemon zest from a peeler, and sage, and just crushed garlic, and maybe a tiny stick of cinnamon, tiny, just for a little question mark. And then you break the frying with milk, and almost like you'd use stock. And as that reacts with the lemon zest, it will split into this sort of gravy jus vibes, but curdy ricotta vibes. And you basically pot roast it for, you know, a chicken would be probably an hour and 10 minutes after you've browned it, and a pork shoulder would be like 4 hours. But you end up with this just outrageous experience. And I think the chicken and milk recipe is on the New York Times website, and it just went mad.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And like it gets hit hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can serve it with like mashed potato if you want to be not classic, but polenta would be a good place. Proper polenta, and like steamed greens, lovely irony fresh beans, just greens, just whatever seasonal, and that, you know, is, and it's sort of funny as well because like there's something quite ugly about it, but there's something really fundamental about sometimes ugly things are delicious. You know, like a lot of cooking's about vanity, and I've had a few. And certainly the male in me, like I feel it's the male. Like I remember filming in Sicily with this crazy woman, and she was teaching me about this way to cook fish, tuna, and she was caramelizing onions, you know, and like lid on and steaming and caramelizing, steaming, and we had a whole crew on it, like legit crew, RE cameras, beautiful lenses. It's fucking like, you know, cost a fortune to make this stuff, all gone to Italy. And I'm like, an hour and a half we'd spent with this mad woman arguing with everyone. She wanted to fight with everyone. No, you don't do that. I'm like, this is like, and it was looking like a bag of shit. You've never seen it's the ugliest food I've ever seen. And so I'm sort of thinking, oh, dear, well, you win some, you lose some. And then I tasted it, of course. It's like, oh. And you just have to take yourself. I took myself to a quiet corner and just said, Jamie, you are a wanker. It's like, this, because it tasted so good, it was painful. Just like that pork or chicken in milk, it's like, it's a little bit, it's khaki, you know. It's that ricotta looks like something I saw my neighbour's cat do once. but
there's a radical simplicity.
Yeah, well, it's just kind of like, ultimately cooking on any level is about, if it's good, it's good. Yeah. And then therefore that's what chefs are frightened of, because they use craft and talent to get their averages up. But you can have a kid come and do something that is painfully good and will shut the whole room up. And like, it's like, so cooking always humbles you. Yeah. It's happened many times to me. Right. Wow. But that's good, right? I think, you know, you want it to be inclusive. You don't want it to be a club. It's not a members club.
That's right. If I may, you are turning 50 in about a month.
Thank you for reminding the whole room.
You know, milestone, or millstone, maybe. You know, in the show you talk about how, you know, you have this concept of sending ripples out into the world with your work, and curious for the next, say, 50 years, you know, what kind of ripples are you thinking about sending out there?
I'll give you some context of the ripples, because you might just think I've had a few too many wines otherwise. No, I think what I was trying to express in Chef's Table was like, when you're trying to like achieve things or do things or create things or change things, like it's always about the splash. It's always about the moment. It's about the disruption. So that was my obsession for a few decades. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the superpower. The superpower is 100% the ripples. And I guess the ripples in Chef's Table was the echoes of like when you've invested in relationships and therefore trust, and when you've taken a kid that had no hope and given them the tools to flourish and fly and become better than you, most importantly, like that selfless spirit that I believe in. You know, like when you give information and love and tricks, you shouldn't give it with a cap, in my opinion. Like you have to infinitely give it, because ultimately it's for everyone to take, but if they can be bothered to take the initiative, you know? So the ripples are really about like, if you lay enough things down, then the kind of critical mass makes your life easier. And I think one of the nice things about getting old is that if you've consistently done that, life starts to get a bit easier in some ways. Like you don't have to waste time because people know and they trust, and therefore you can up your game, you can up your ante. So as far as the new ripples are concerned, I don't know, I would like to use the next 10 years to sort of, I know how everything works now, and I've only made so much change. So I'd like to get a little bit more ninja at shaping the way. And it's really interesting. I think, like, you know, when you're living in a time where people that lead set examples around the world, like, again, how I think that a family or a country is defined on how they treat the most vulnerable, right? And but also, like, for instance, like, so when we've done campaigns in the UK and we've changed law and policy, like, that's great, but the best ripples in the world is then when Ireland do it, and Chile does it, and Portugal does it, and France does it, and it becomes the new norm because it's logical and it makes sense. But you need someone to break it. Now, if Chile had broken first, no disrespect to Chile, but possibly it wouldn't have the kind of the stage to amplify that message and that good practice and the joys of that. But the UK is definitely up there in the top 10 countries where it can. So, like, when I remember I was at where was I? I was in Brussels at the World Health Forum. So there's, like, the health minister of every country on the planet is in the room in front of me, and I literally, by pure luck, got the text. Genuinely, this is the truth. I had the text as I walked into that room to do I did a little show and tell about the sugary drinks tax and how it was structured, how we did it, and why it works, and what the benefits, what's the downside, which is fuck all, and what are the upside, which is a whole network of upsides, right? As I walked into that room, I was told that it was made law, and I had a standing ovation from every single health minister on the planet, right? And so then you go, well, why? Like, there's a kid come up, like, I'm just like celebrity chef, whatever, but, like, so why would that happen? And so I was quite taken back by this, and at the end, I can't remember what country he was from, but basically he said, the fact that you've got it over the line, you know, we all in the room say that we're going to do stuff, but we don't do it, and that's the struggle of politics. But when you actually land it, then others are going to follow, and that's exactly what did happen. So I think, like, you know, for me personally, around child health, there's so much more that we can do. And when you address public health, child health, the ripples again, it's not just like child health, like they think differently, they eat differently, it's how well they do at school, their educational attainment, you know, their employability, how much on average they're going to earn, how much they cost society in the healthcare goes down, how long they live, the postcode they live in. So, like, this is really, I know I'm biased, but I think food's got a lot more, understanding the freedom of good food, and also, like, the connection between good nutrition and learning, and being able to remember and being able to recall. It's, yeah. So I think there's more to work out.
Yeah. I'm wondering if anyone out here has a question for Jamie.
Oh, that's always the scary one, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Well, where did these people come from?
Come.
They could be planted from
They could.
institutions.
And some of them are, I think. Yeah.
Someone from Kellogg's is here, and Nestle, Danone.
Anyone?
No, I think they've had their fair share, to be honest. It even means that me and you have done our job.
I suppose. Yeah. Leave
time
them.
for canapes.
Always leave them wanting less, as Andy Warhol said.
100%.
Anyway, guys, Jamie, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You all, thanks. Stick around, have some wine, whatever. That's great.
Thank you very much for coming, guys.